Hello everyone, welcome to the February 2017 Friday Flashback review here from the CC Network. I'm Fred, your ever-reliable host as always, and today we're looking at a pay-per-view that I've wanted to look at for some time. It's a classic of pre-Attitude Era WWF, and it's apparently one of the best shows that WWE as a company total have ever produced. It's In Your House 16 Canadian Stampede. Now, since WrestleMania 13, which is not a very good WrestleMania if you know your stuff, the new Hart Foundation, led by a heel Bret Hart, have been making Stone Cold's life a living hell, and vice versa with Austin, because it's Austin, what more would you expect? And Raw was anarchic television as from week to week all hell could break loose, with a myriad of factions and groups fighting with each other. At the same time, The Undertaker held the WWF Championship with a vice-like grip, defeating all his path. New stars such as Hearst, Helmsley and Rocky Maivia were starting to gain momentum, while some, such as Mick Foley under the Mankind gimmick, were returning to prominence at the top of the card. Oh, and we also got the continuation from the Rumble of Japanese wrestlers getting a showing on cards. Well, all in all, 1997 may not be delivering in terms of pay-per-view quality according to many of the time and what few 1997 events I have seen myself, but on Raw, well, let's just say it was a riot to watch. As the Hart-Austin rivalry reached its zenith and The Undertaker was taking on his biggest challenge yet in Vader, could this event buck a trend where even the best booked event of 1997 couldn't escape mundanity? Well, hopefully this event won't fall into that trap, and we'll see how this plays out. WWF In Your House 16 Canadian Stampede took place on the 6th of July 1997 at the Saddle Dome in Calgary, Alberta, Canada, with 12,151 people packing in to see their hometown heroes. Not at the max of 19,000 people that could be fit into this venue, but still, it's not a bad turnout, I've got to say. And this was the first and so far only pay-per-view event to be held in this arena, while it has hosted many Raws and SmackDown events since the turn of the millennium. All in all, it's not that bad, but you kind of think they would bring some events back to this thing. You'd hope. Anyway, there's not really much to say, except this review might be shorter than usual due to it only having 4 matches on the card, and honestly, finding out about what happened in the build-up was not as easy as I thought, because the online wrestling websites that I use for looking this stuff up didn't have a lot of in-depth analysis of the storylines and everything else, so it was quite difficult to figure it out. But hey, if you want to watch every Raw from June and July 1997 to understand what went on, you can go right ahead and do that on the WWE Network. I personally don't have the time, and as a result, my analysis of the build-up and storylines aren't going to be as good as they should be. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, we've already done enough in this intro. Let's get on with the review. We kick things off on this card with a singles contest as Mankind took on Hunter Hearst Helmsley. Now, Helmsley defeated Mankind to win the 1997 King of the Ring, but attacked his opponent afterwards because, you know, he's a cowardly heel. It's fitting. This led Mankind, in a fit of anger, to challenge the man who would become Triple H to a rematch, which he agreed to. And then they brawled on and off week in, week out to show that, yeah, these two really did hate each other. And I will say this rivalry was heated, and it showed as both men brawled to the outside and got counted out, resulting in a draw following 13 minutes and 14 seconds of action in this match. And then again, you'd think the fighting would end there, but no, they hated each other so much that the referees and the security guards could not control them, as they brawled into the beginning of the next contest, which kind of stilted the crowd and the opening of said match, but they also fought afterwards. And went backstage, outside, and fought amongst the production trucks. It was quite ridiculous. Then again, the match wasn't too bad in itself. It was a frantic yet technically pleasing bout that showed the man who would become Triple H was already quite a good wrestler and a good contender for the future early on. And while it also highlighted Mankind as the risk-taking son of a gun we already knew and grew to respect as a result. Now, Mankind came out of the gate seeking revenge for the loss and the attacks, which obviously meant he kept the pace steady and fast with the intensity, only to have Helmsley and Chyna use their interference and working Foley's leg to tell a great story. So whether these two, having thrown everything at each other, couldn't keep it contained, it was quite fun, and the crowd, well, they took their time to fully invest themselves into it. They loved Mankind and booed Helmsley when appropriate, which was fine. Overall, though, the match lasted a little too long for my liking, but the pace of the match was just fast enough so it didn't become boring in the process. Overall, it was a fun match that, as an opener of a pay-per-view, I really couldn't be more happy with. It continued their storyline perfectly and was a great way to kick it all together. You know what? I'm going to say this right now. It is a 3-star contest. And why didn't I go full in-depth with it? Well, the main event is worth all of my time to the point where I don't need to really talk about this one. But nonetheless, a 3-star match to open this show? I couldn't have asked for a better start. Next, we have a Japanese exhibition match featuring Taka Michinoku taking on the great Sasuke. Now, there isn't really much here that I can talk about storyline-wise, because it was just a match put together to give the great Sasuke a debut match on WWF pay-per-view. The thing is, though, for those of you who know your wrestling, you know that the great Sasuke is very well versed and very, very good at what he does. I mean, I may not watch a lot of Japanese wrestling, but the one thing I do know is that the match he had with Wild Pegasus in the Super J 1994 Cup Final is arguably one of the best matches I've ever seen. And of course, if you know Wild Pegasus, that's Chris Benoit. So when you've got a guy who can push a pre-WCW and ECW Chris Benoit to his limits, you know you got a good wrestler on your hands. Nonetheless, the match went about its business and Sasuke won his opening debut pay-per-view bout, defeating Michinoku off his Thunder Firebomb in 10 minutes exactly. The match had very little fanfare going into it, and honestly I wasn't expecting much, despite the quality of talent we had involved here, but they pleasantly surprised with a quick as lightning match that showcased technical, aerial and striking skill that slowly enveloped an indifferent and apathetic crowd into cheering the brilliance, all while giving a small amount of storytelling through Michinoku's fantastic selling of Sasuke's stiff offense, as well as working the leg and the arm too. You can't deny how good that is. It was a bout between two of Japan's greats as they were in a battle of one-upsmanship trying to best one another and up the risk factor to do so. It was quite a fun match once it got going, but it took getting through about 3 or 4 minutes of mat wrestling that bored the crowd and kind of made the match feel quite stilted and boring. I'm a fan of mat wrestling, but when it has no real purpose and just there to warm the wrestlers up, it's not the best thing to watch, inevitably. This may be the quote-unquote worst match of the night according to me, but the fact is, when you look at the ratings on the screen right now from the rating factors I give, I'm going to say this: calling a 2.5-star match the worst match of the night isn't a big problem, is it? No, I would not think so. It was a fun exhibition match that delivered a lot more than I was expecting. I'll give both men credit, as this could have easily floundered. They did just enough to go into my real good books, and that's something I will say I did not see coming beforehand. Next up, we have the WWF Championship match, as we see the incumbent champion Undertaker take on Big Van Vader for the richest prize in the game. Now, this match wasn't meant to be Vader versus Taker. If you know your stuff or watched back then, The Undertaker was teaming with an up-and-coming Ahmed Johnson who had a pretty good 1996. Going into 97, he was being built as something big, and honestly, he could have been the first African-American world champion in WWF history. He could have been. But he suffered an injury in a brawl with the DOA after turning on Taker to join the Nation of Domination, the faction that Taker was feuding with at the time, and that betrayal would have resulted from that in Johnson getting the title match here. But that knee injury stopped him from getting the match and he had to forfeit the position. Vader was then given the match instead on the June 23rd edition of Raw. Now, Undertaker had Paul Bearer going against him because Paul Bearer at that time was a heel and Undertaker was a face. So logically, Paul Bearer thought he can get Undertaker's skin by threatening to reveal a secret about Taker to the world, and he would do so if Taker did not comply with Paul Bearer's orders to team with Vader in a match for the WWF Tag Team Championships. Well, Taker took no crap from Bearer and beat the crap out of Vader, leading to Bearer revealing, of course as we know, that Taker killed his entire family, including his half-brother Kane, in a fire. And all this was starting to build up as Vader was prepared to take down the shaken Undertaker, who was having to deal with the repercussions of this news while trying to focus on defending a title at a pay-per-view. How he does it, I have no idea. Vader took it to the Undertaker, but couldn't get the job done as the dead man came out on top and retained his championship. Now, I make it sound easy for the dead man to do so, but look at what it took to finish Vader off in this thing. It took a regular chokeslam, a second rope chokeslam, and a tombstone piledriver in sequence to put the Mastodon down. And it took 12 minutes and 39 seconds to do it. This is a match with two big men going at it, destroying each other with hard-hitting offense while using their agility to ensure the pace barely slowed much. All in all, when you have Taker and Vader here on show, you know this is going to be different than a usual super heavyweight bout, and we got that proven thusly. The crowd were into absolutely everything that Taker did. He was a white hot babyface at this time, with an insane level of support, and it came through greatly, while Vader was booed for every move and taunt he did, creating an electric atmosphere that rarely subsided in this thing. Paul Bearer instigated himself into the match, berating Taker and calling him a murderer and taking his boot to the face, while Taker himself managed to survive the punishment of Vader that looked certain to beat him, with both men exchanging low blows and taking bigger risks as the match built on. As for Vader, I'll say this, he survived a hell of a lot here, and as I mentioned earlier, taking the most punishment anyone had gone through to be pinned by the dead man at this point. It was crazy. And when you combine the steady pace and momentum shifting with it, it's all good, but I've got to say it was missing some body selling, some more move variety, and a little more time. I would have liked this to have rounded out around 14, 15 minutes, just to feel that the ending wasn't rushed. I mean, it wasn't rushed, really, but I felt that it could have had a couple minutes more to make that ending have more impact. And all in all, if it wasn't for those faults, we'd be looking at a 3-star match here. But alas, we aren't. However, it was mighty close at 2 3/4 stars. This match was worth way more than its weight justified in describing how decent this match was. I've got to say, if you want to see an example of a good super heavyweight bout, check this one out. It's well worth your time, even though it didn't reach 3 stars. Then again, it shouldn't stop you, because anything above 2.5 is good in my book. Finally, on these traditionally short in your house cards, we have reached the main event, and it is a bit of a doozy, the bumper 10-man tag team match, as the Hart Foundation, consisting of Bret Hart, Owen Hart, Jim the Anvil Neidhart, the British Bulldog, and Brian Pillman, took on Stone Cold Steve Austin, Ken Shamrock, Goldust, and the Road Warriors Animal and Hawk. Now, Bret and Austin's rivalry continued following their WrestleMania Classic, with Austin defeating Hart by DQ at Revenge of Taker, which incensed the Hitman, with his family beating the Rattlesnake down. A month later, at Cold Day in Hell, the Hart Foundation cost Austin the WWF Championship, which followed with more destructive beatdowns in the weeks after. The violent punishment that Austin had here was also supplemented by Hart degrading the US fans for supporting such a renegade who he considered a bad influence. And, well, who'd have believed it? Because, of course, Bret is squeaky clean, right? Nonetheless, not only did Austin have to deal with the violence the Hart Foundation was putting on him and the degradation from Bret, but he also had to deal with teaming with Shawn Michaels and holding the tag team championships too. There was even more tension involved. It was an insane situation, and it did him no good at all. Now, at the King of the Ring, Hart told the WWF locker room to assemble a group of America's finest wrestlers to take on the entire Hart Foundation stable at Canadian Stampede, in the ultimate Canadian versus USA battle. Austin, of course, would have put himself into the fray, with Goldust, Ken Shamrock, and the Legion of Doom also putting their names forward too. The factions then took every single opportunity to brawl with each other wherever possible, even when they were all handcuffed to the ring posts during a Pillman-Austin match. Quite nuts, right? Now things came to a head on the final Raw before the event as Bret attacked Austin during a match with Neidhart and proceeded, like he had done during many of these attacks over the coming months, he targeted the Rattlesnake's legs, specifically wrapping them around the ring post in his signature figure 4 leg lock, weakening his foe quite severely before this bout came to be. Now, I'm going to say this, it's a 3-star plus quality match, and if you've seen the match, you know exactly what I mean. If you haven't, go watch this match, or listen to my play-by-play commentary while having it, because you know this is going to get play-by-play analytical commentary. And it's the reason why the 3-star bout between Mankind and Helmsley, as I stated earlier, isn't being given the treatment. This match is quite frankly insane, and I want to just sum it all up. It's great stuff. Let's go right into detail then, shall we? The Hart Foundation got a humongous reception upon coming into the Saddle Dome. It was ridiculous. The crowd were hot as hell as all 10 men stared each other down, but it whittled itself down to Austin and Bret, with the two rivals brawling as the bell rang. And Bret, well, he beat Austin down. Austin recovered, flips off the crowd and goes for Bret again, but Bret got the upper hand, knocking the Rattlesnake down. And the building is shaking. It literally is, because the crowd are that into this thing, and the commentators cannot quite believe it. But Austin hits back with a low blow and stomps a mod hole through the Hitman before locking the $1 Million Dream in. Bret fights out into a cover for 2. Austin goes for his running press into the ropes, but Bret gets out of the dodge and tags in Neidhart, who doesn't last long before Austin hits a Thesz press to take him down, and Austin then tags in Shamrock. Shamrock goes for the ankle lock on Neidhart, but Pillman breaks it up. However, Shamrock goes right back for it, and goes right back to Neidhart, who punches his way out of an arm drag counted into a cover for 1. Pillman then tags himself in and he's grounded by Shamrock as well, but fights out and bites the head, spitting in Shamrock's face. Because he's a dick, as he lays in the chops and a backbreaker, slamming Shamrock's hand to the mat to simulate a tap out because, oh my god, he's that weak and that inexperienced. How hilarious. Good God almighty. Pillman goes for a whip, but is hit with a stiff clothesline and a belly-to-belly, with Pillman then tagging in Owen as Shamrock tags in Goldust at the same time. The crowd lose it for Owen. They love him. Obviously they would. Goldust throws Owen around, but Owen counters with a stiff enziguri for 2. The crowd vehemently chants, "Austin sucks," despite the Rattlesnake being on the apron. They really want to dig it into Austin, don't they? As Hawk is tagged in, and he lays out Owen for the 2, but then goes up and hits a splash for 2. A rebounding dropkick is then counted into a sharpshooter, but Animal breaks up the submission. Bulldog is then tagged in. He hits his running power slam and stalling suplex, both getting 2 as Bret and Animal are then tagged in. Animal goes for the running clothesline, but is countered by Bret as Goldust is then tagged in. 2 second-generation stars in Bret and Goldust are sizing each other up, but Bret delivers a low kick and puts the weird one into a tree of woe in the Foundation's corner, leading to a stomping as the opposition teams storm out of their corner to save their partner, as the crowd... To say they lose it is an understatement. They are going absolutely rabid here. Owen is then tagged in as he wears down Goldust, but misses a running shoulder tackle into the steel post, which is tagged Animal in after to go right for it with kicks. But Owen comes back with a spinning heel kick and a top rope drop kick to put the big man down. He goes for the Hurricane Runner, but Animal counters into a powerbomb and a power slam. Animal calls Hawk over, and they hit the Doomsday Device on Owen. Lovely. They cover, but Jim Neidhart grows in to break the count. As once again, all hell breaks loose, with Austin ramming the knee of Owen into the post multiple times before cracking it with a steel chair, which, even more insane, leads Bruce Hart. Yes, the entire Hart family are in the front bloody row here, and Bruce Hart, because he's a lunatic, took it upon himself to deck Austin in the face, which allowed Bret to come right back into this, and I gotta say, the crowd is going mental here. It's insane. Bret then comes, it's nuts. Owen is then pulled out of the ring by medical staff as Austin... Austin gets pelted with more Austin sucks chants at very loud volume, obviously. Neidhart pulls Austin into the Foundation's corner for a mauling as Hebner keeps Austin's team from entering, and that doesn't really stop Austin because he can fight all himself. He fights back, beats up everybody on the apron, and he gets his hands on Pillman, his former best friend, his former tag partner in the Hollywood Blondes. He nearly pulls his tights down as he's just stopping Pillman from running away. It's hilarious, and he then hits a stunner. Because it had been coming, it's fantastic storytelling. Pillman rolls into his corner, allowing Bret to wrap Austin's hurt knee around the post through a distraction, hitting it with a fire extinguisher, and then wrapping it in the figure 4 leg lock, of course, which we know he damaged the knee with multiple attacks building up to this show, including the week before. This is great stuff, but Animal made the save. And, well, oh God, I love this. This is just manic. Austin is then stomped by Bulldog as Hawk is tagged in. It's mad. Austin can't go on as he's now taken to the back as well. This match is nuts. Bulldog then goes after Hawk, gaining a 2 count off a turnbuckle counter as he teams with Neidhart for a wicked double clothesline. Animal tags in and squares down the anvil as a test of strength slows things down, which Neidhart fights back from as Bret is now tagged in and they hit with the elbow backbreaker double team for 2, which is of course a shade of the original Hart Foundation, as Vince McMahon pointed out. Shamrock is then tagged in after Animal counters a whip as the world's most dangerous man goes for an ankle lock, but Pillman decks him before he can get it in. Bret then goes down low, but Shamrock's power throws, and well, he uses his strength very well, and he puts the Hitman into the turnbuckle sternum first, as Shamrock taunts Bret on the canvas, allowing for the excellence of execution to get up and take him back into his corner. The commentators, though, noted that this time Shamrock could have easily locked in the ankle lock and done all kinds of things, but he noted his inexperience that cost him, as Pillman throws Shamrock into the table, with Animal going after Bulldog as well, as Hawk is thrown into the steps. They're brawling at ringside, it's insane. Back in the ring, Bret hits a side Russian leg sweep for 2 on Goldust to break the count. Bulldog is now in with Shamrock, stomping a mod hole in the former UFC champion, with the crowd loving every second. Shamrock hits a low blow, turning the crowd on a dime to boo the living shit out of him, as Goldust is now in, hitting a headlock Bulldog to the Bulldog. He lines up the curtain call, but once again, like so many times in this match, Brian Pillman interferes to a thunderous ovation. He covers... oh God. Goldust knocked into a superplex by Bulldog, hitting it with a thunderous ovation. It's covered, but Hawk breaks it up. Austin, well, he's back. He comes from behind and he just goes in as he wills Goldust to make the tag. He's back at ringside, even with a messed up knee. Bulldog crawls into his corner, tags in Bret as Goldust tags in Austin. These two rivals, just as they started the match off, go at it once again. Hart gets the upper hand by hitting a thunderous DDT and a backbreaker. And as Bret climbs to his ropes and hits his elbow, he then covers, but then gets 2 as Austin kicks out. Bret then locks in a sleeper, which Austin counters into, I believe, either a cutter or a stunner, depending on who you believe. Covers, but this time it's Bret who refuses to give up. I love this match so much. Bret then counters the whip and locks in the sharpshooter, but Animal breaks it up to unanimous boos from the Canadians in the audience. Austin then locks in the sharpshooter of his own, but Owen then runs from backstage and breaks it up himself to an even bigger ovation than the boos got. Bret then tags in Owen, who goes right for Austin, but the rattlesnake knocks him to the outside and nails him right up against the railing. Now, this is where things start to get a little anarchic. Bruce Hart then throws a cup at Austin's head, because he can, he's a bit of a lunatic. He then, in the rattlesnake's not wisest moment, he starts punching Stu Hart, the 82-year-old father patriarch of the Hart family, right as the rest of the Hart family then decide, oh, you know what, screw it, we're going to save our dad here. They all go out to ringside to brawl and beat the crap out of Austin. The crowd are losing it, I'm losing it while watching this, it's ridiculous. Good God. Austin is then distracted as Bret puts him back in the ring, distracting Stone Cold at ringside, allowing for Owen to roll him up and get the 3. The Hart Foundation get the win in 24 minutes and 31 seconds in what has been quite a scintillating contest. And you know what? You think the match would end there, but no. The Hart family, both teams, they all brawl with each other at ringside, in the ring. It is absolute anarchy. It's crazy. The police, however, want to stop this melee from happening, and they break it up as a dejected Austin and his team go to the back as the Calgary crowd rejoice at their hometown boys' victory. But Austin, being the rattlesnake and a guy who takes no shit, he came out by himself with a steel chair and decked Neidhart with it before the police swamped him. Bret then got a few stomps in for good measure because, well, he hates the guy. Nonetheless, Stone Cold is taken away in cuffs as the Calgary crowd again remind him he sucks. Pillman then gets one final slap and a middle finger in for good measure against his former partner, while the rattlesnake being led up the ramp flips off the crowd while handcuffed. Gotta love it, right? Now this left the Hart family finally the opportunity to take the applause from their hometown crowd. And it wasn't just the wrestlers. I've already mentioned the whole Hart family was there, and I was not kidding. It's not just the wrestlers who weren't in the company, the wrestlers who are, but it's the wives, the children, and of course Stu Hart going up there to just get the plaudits with Helen at his side. It is quite lovely as they lap up the applause with Bret's music going as the pay-per-view goes off the air. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to see the definition of what an all-out war looks like, then this is one of the best examples of it in a wrestling match. This was insane. It was intense, it was frantic, it had arguably the hottest crowd I have ever heard. And I asked a Q&A question to Good Mic Work regarding this event a few years back, and he said you are probably not going to find a better crowd than this. I am telling you right now, I agree with that sentiment. This was insane. The crowd were into absolutely every minute of this thing. They would not relent, and it created an atmosphere that I've not heard for a match in so long. Probably not since, I would dare say, the polarizing crowds of Punk Cena or Rock Cena when, of course, they were in their hometowns, have I heard a crowd reaction this intense. It was ridiculous. Not just that, the pace was furious as well, not slowing down even for a minute as both teams shifted momentum seamlessly and quickly, and it went just long enough to make it all feel worthwhile as it was building. It was extremely enjoyable, and it was fun to watch, where even in its dullest moments I just could not stop smiling. The story that it told was phenomenal, as both teams wouldn't give up, and with interference from some of the members of the Hart family too, as well as some decent selling of body parts, and two members being taken out of the match and then coming back in, and it was crazy. It was sublime at times. It was amazing. The one thing, however, that I didn't like was the finish. The only thing I didn't like was the finish. I would have liked a much more proper finish to go for this, as seeing Owen roll up Austin while this melee was going on while enthralling was a little disappointing. It could have gone on for maybe 2 minutes too long to really ensure a proper finish, to give this pacing area of my ratings the extra 0.5 it needed to give a 5-star rating. Hell, the ending took a 0.5 off the psychology, because I felt that having the Hearts get a decisive victory would have felt more logical. That would have given the little bit of extra psychology to give this a 5-star rating too. I'm very sad that I'm not going to give this a 5-star rating off 2 small technicalities resulting from the ending of this contest. I really want to give this match 5 bloody stars. But it's not going to be, not today. But you know what? This is the surest 4 3/4 star rating I am ever going to give. It is so close to 5-star, it's incredible. This match is worth whatever rating I've given it. It is a manic fight that is a brilliant culmination of the Bret Austin rivalry. It is ridiculous. I've already said at the beginning of this, before this analysis began, go check this damn match out. It is superb. And after hearing all that I've just highlighted, if you don't check this match out, I'm wondering what the hell is wrong with you. Go to the network, go to WWE DVD, go to your VHS if you have it. Watch this match again, because if you have seen it, you know how good this is. If you haven't, treat yourself to a piece of great wrestling storytelling and one of the best crowd reactions you are ever going to hear. It is not 5 stars by the smallest amount, but my God, it is going to receive the biggest recommendation from me. And now I can calm down as I try to piece together my brain and figure out my final thoughts on this show. Now, this event has been long held as one of WWE's best, and honestly, it's quite easy to see why. The 4 matches on show here were really well done, where even the worst barely even qualified to be called a bad match. And all the matches achieved over 2.5 stars or higher. The crowd was progressively more into this event as it went on, to where its 2 main event matches got seismic reactions, and all of the finishes in those matches made sense in the long run, because we got Owen versus Austin following the match at SummerSlam, where of course Austin broke his neck. So in a way the finish made sense, but I'm still going to critique it for what it was, regardless. Nonetheless, this pay-per-view, for 2 hours of entertainment, was an insanely fun one to watch, and it was well worth the time. While the main event didn't reach the 5-star it deserved, it certainly capped off an event of consistent quality, and while it wasn't a show that broke into the 9 out of 10 scoring territory for the greatest of all shows, I'm going to say this, it certainly came close. Because, ladies and gentlemen, In Your House 16, Canadian Stampede, scores an impressive 8.25 out of 10. What a fantastic show, and to see a 4-match card done so well, I wish a card this small could be done better more often, as this is a show that overall is a testament to the quality of In Your House shows if done right, and that sometimes small pay-per-view cards are worth the time. All in all, this is a show you shouldn't miss out on. I've already mentioned earlier, go to the network, get your VHS, get your DVD, check this out now. Any pay-per-view that gets over an 8 out of 10 from my scale is worth it. Just watch for the main event alone. Watch for the whole thing. It's all worth looking at. This is a pay-per-view worth investing your time in, and while I may seem more excited for other cards that have achieved this 8 rating or higher, I'm telling you now, if you have 2 hours to kill, you would be wasting your time in other areas if you did not choose to spend it watching this. What a show. What a show. Well, there we have it, everyone. The Canadian Stampede pay-per-view Friday Flashback review for the February 2017 edition of this show has been done. And I hope you've all enjoyed this, because this was so fun for me to watch. It was so good. Reminded me once again why I love watching this sport, considering the modern day product isn't at its best. And I'm sorry that a short review from me has to go nearly 35 to 40 minutes, but this is just how I do things. I'm sorry that a 4-match card got stretched this long, but when you've got a main event that bloody incredible, I had to do it justice. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, what did you think about this show? Is it as good as I've said? Is it better? Because I know a lot of you will say so. It won the Wrestling Observer Newsletter Award for Pay-Per-View of the Year, for God's sake. Overall, if I find any of you who say this pay-per-view isn't worth the time, do say so in the comments section, because I'd like to hear your opinion and see, in a nice form of debate, whether we can agree to disagree. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't want to miss out on anything that happens going forward, all you have to do is click that subscribe button down there so you don't miss out on any videos, and ensure you click the bell, because if you don't, you won't get notifications, so YouTube's algorithm, which is still messed up, mind you, will not screw you over from getting the CC Network's steady flow of monthly content. Now, speaking of which, the next Friday Flashback, we return to the Big 4 series that I've been doing, and we enter into 2003. Oh boy, as we look at the 2003 Royal Rumble. containing one of the best matches ever and one of the worst in arguably the showing of what's good and what's bad about pro wrestling all at once. You know which matches I'm on about, and I cannot wait to sink my teeth into that one. And that's coming up in March, along with a myriad of other content on this channel. Let's hope you all enjoy that, and let's just hope that that pay-per-view can live up to this one. It probably won't, but you never know. Pay-per-views have a tendency to surprise me every now and again. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people listening, this has been the Friday Flashback review for the CC Network, and I will see you all next time. Cheers!